Most people go through life asking, how can I get more? More money, more time, more recognition, more freedom. But few stop to ask the deeper question, what is the source of abundance, and how do I align with it? You see, abundance is not something you chase, it's something you unlock. It's not something outside of you waiting to be discovered, it's something within you waiting to be expressed. And the key that unlocks it is not a strategy, a secret, or a scheme, it's a principle, a divine principle, one that has governed the rise and fall of every fortune, every kingdom, every breakthrough, one that has remained unchanged for thousands of years, whether you believe in God or not. And when this principle is understood, not just intellectually, but deeply, emotionally, spiritually, something shifts. You stop living in reaction to the world and begin creating in harmony with it. You stop struggling to get and start choosing to give, and in that choice, in that simple but powerful reversal, the floodgates of abundance begin to open. The divine principle that unlocks abundance is this: we receive in direct proportion to what we give. Let that settle. Not what we wish for, not what we intend, what we give. Our rewards in life are always in exact proportion to our contribution. This is not a motivational slogan, it is a law, and like gravity, it is impartial. It does not care about your background, your education, or your current bank balance. It responds only to input, to contribution, to service. That means every time you provide value, real, honest, helpful value, you activate the law. And every time you hold back, hoard, or hesitate, you interrupt the flow. The person who is aligned with this law becomes magnetic. They don't have to chase success. They become the kind of person success naturally flows toward. And the key is not in some hidden tactic, it's in understanding that the universe by design rewards the giver. Now you may be wondering, what do I have to give? The answer is more than you think. You have ideas, energy, time, attention, kindness, skill, creativity, insight, effort, presence. You have something that, when focused and freely given, multiplies. You don't have to be rich to give. You don't have to be successful to serve. In fact, giving before you receive is the path to receiving. Most people get this backwards. They say, once I have more, I'll give more. But that's like saying, once the fire gives me heat, I'll add wood. The fire can't give you heat until you feed it. That's the law. And when you live in alignment with this law, giving your best wherever you are, with whatever you have, you set forces in motion that begin working in your favor, often in ways you can't predict or measure. But they're real, and they are relentless. Take a moment to consider the people you admire, those who have built lives of success, meaning, and abundance. Without exception, they are givers, not necessarily of money, but of value. They solve problems, they inspire, they teach, they build, they sacrifice, they serve, and in doing so, they create a current of energy that lifts them above the noise of the world. Because the world is not short on takers. The world is short on those willing to give when it's inconvenient. Willing to give without applause. Willing to give as a habit, not as a performance. The divine principle doesn't reward occasional generosity. It rewards character. It rewards consistency. It rewards those who choose to make their life about something larger than themselves. And that choice, repeated day after day, is what turns a good life into a great one. This principle doesn't just apply to money. It applies to relationships, to creativity, to health, to faith. If you want love, give love. If you want opportunity, create opportunity. If you want wisdom, teach what you've learned. You see, the mind that gives is the mind that grows. The hand that opens is the hand that receives, and the heart that serves is the heart that expands. But when you close off, when you retreat into self-preservation, into fear, into scarcity, you cut yourself off from the very thing you're seeking. That's the tragedy of modern life. People are starving for connection, for freedom, for abundance, but they're afraid to give the one thing that would unlock it, and so they remain stuck. Not because they lack potential, but because they lack alignment with the law. Let me be clear. This principle is not about martyrdom. It's not about giving until you collapse. It's about living from a place of fullness, a place of clarity, a place of purpose. When you are aligned with who you are and what you're here to do, giving doesn't drain you, it energizes you. Contribution becomes a joy, not a burden, and you begin to notice something beautiful. The more you give, the more you grow. The more you grow, the more you can give. It becomes a cycle of expansion, a loop of abundance. And that's when life begins to feel rich. Not just financially, but spiritually, emotionally, creatively. You're no longer chasing fulfillment. You're creating it. one act of contribution at a time. Now you may say, but what if I give and I don't receive anything back? And that's a fair question, but it's the wrong one. The right question is, am I giving from a place of expectancy or from a place of faith? The principle works, but not on your schedule. Sometimes the reward comes later. Sometimes it comes in a form you didn't expect. But it always comes, because the law cannot be broken. If you plant seeds in good soil and tend to them, they must produce a harvest. That's not speculation. That's cause and effect. So keep planting, keep giving, keep serving. Not because it's easy, but because it's right, and because eventually, inevitably, the harvest will come. And when it does, it won't just bless you, it will bless everyone around you. That's the mark of true abundance. It overflows. So I'll leave you with this. If you want to change your life, stop asking what you can get. Start asking what you can give. Wake up tomorrow with one question on your heart. Where can I contribute today? Then do it. Quietly, consistently, intentionally, and watch how the world begins to respond. Because the divine principle that unlocks abundance is not hidden. It's not complicated. It's not reserved for the elite. It is simple, eternal, and available to anyone willing to live by it. We receive in direct proportion to what we give. That is the law. That is the invitation. That is the key. There is a moment in every person's life when they must choose how they will see the world, from the lens of scarcity or from the lens of abundance. Scarcity says there's not enough, I must protect, I must compete, I must hold back. Abundance says there's more than enough, I can create, I can serve, I can give. This mental lens determines everything. It colors your thoughts, shapes your choices, and ultimately defines your results. Most people were raised to think in scarcity. They were told money is hard to come by, success is for the lucky, and good things are rare, and without realizing it, they build lives in reaction to those beliefs. But the person who chooses to see abundance, even before it appears, begins to activate it, not just externally, but internally. Because abundance is not a possession, it's a perception, and when your perception shifts, your behavior shifts, and when your behavior shifts, your results follow. You do not wait for abundance to arrive. You live like it's already here, and in doing so, you create the conditions for it to grow. The world you experience is a mirror of the mindset you hold. If you believe you are surrounded by opportunity, you will begin to see it hidden in conversations, wrapped in problems, waiting in moments others overlook. If you believe the best days are ahead, you will act with energy, hope, and vision. But if you believe you are stuck, small, limited, you will shrink to match those expectations. This is not just positive thinking, this is programming. Every thought you allow into your mind is a signal to your nervous system. It becomes instruction, and your body, your decisions, your habits, they obey that signal. So if you continually speak lack, you program yourself to expect and accept lack. But if you speak life, if you declare there is more than enough and I am capable of creating it, you begin to build a new rhythm, a rhythm of faith, a rhythm of growth, and abundance begins to respond, not because it favors you, but because it recognizes alignment. Now let's get practical. If you want to activate abundance, start by becoming a person of uncommon value. The marketplace does not pay for intentions. It pays for solutions. It rewards those who take the time to master something useful, to solve a real problem, to elevate the experience of others. Your income will always be in direct proportion to your service. That means if you want more, become more useful, more skilled, more thoughtful, more reliable, more generous. These traits are not soft. They are assets. They build reputational capital, which converts to relational capital, which ultimately converts to financial capital. But most importantly, they build inner capital, character, confidence, resilience. And that is the kind of wealth that no market downturn can ever take from you. Becoming a person of uncommon value doesn't mean being perfect. It means being intentional, showing up when others flake, finishing what others abandon, going the extra mile, not for applause, but because it's who you are. Let me challenge you. Think of your work as a form of worship, a way to serve, to elevate, to express the divine principle of giving. When you write, when you teach, when you lead, when you build, pour your spirit into it. Don't do it halfway. Don't treat it like a transaction. Treat it like an offering. Because when you give your best, something miraculous happens. Your work begins to carry energy. People feel it. They may not be able to articulate it, but they sense it. They sense that you're not operating from fear or desperation, but from abundance, from intention, from mastery, and that energy becomes attractive. You don't need to convince people to support you, they want to. You don't need to manipulate results, they arrive. Not by chance, but by resonance, because energy never lies. It always tells the truth about who we are and what we're building. It's important to understand this. Abundance is not only financial, it is emotional, it is relational, it is spiritual, and the divine principle touches every part of your life. If you give encouragement, you receive support. If you give kindness, you receive grace. If you give effort, you receive growth. And if you give time to things that matter, you receive clarity. You can't always predict how the abundance will come, but you can be certain that it will. That's the faith that activates it. Not blind faith, but intelligent faith. The kind of faith that says, I've aligned myself with the law, I've planted good seed, I've watered it with action. Now I trust the process. That trust is powerful. It removes anxiety. It replaces striving with calm effort. It lets you rest in the assurance that good things are coming, not because you hope so, but because you've earned them through alignment and contribution. Some people ask, but what about setbacks? What about the times I give and don't see a return? And the answer is simple. Setbacks are part of the system. They are not a sign the principle has failed. They are proof that you're in motion. No farmer expects every seed to bloom, but every farmer plants anyway. They understand that the law works through volume, through consistency, through time. The person aligned with abundance keeps sowing. They keep giving. They don't grow weary in well-doing, because they know that in due season they will reap if they do not faint. That patience, that grit, that long-term vision is the rarest form of wealth, and those who possess it are always rewarded. Not always immediately, but always eventually. Let me speak now to the inner posture of abundance. It is not loud, it is not boastful, it is calm, quiet, steady. It doesn't chase, it draws. It doesn't beg, it builds. It doesn't panic, it prepares. The person aligned with abundance is not obsessed with the outcome, they are immersed in the process. And because of that, they walk with a kind of peace, a kind of power. You can feel it in their presence. They are grounded, centered, and their lives begin to reflect that posture. Because the world does not respond to desperation, it responds to identity. And when your identity is rooted in the belief that you are a contributor, a creator, a channel through which good flows, then good begins to flow back. Not because you forced it, but because you became the kind of person who receives it. So if you want to activate this divine principle, begin today. Give what you can where you are with what you have. Don't wait for ideal conditions. Don't wait for applause. Give your time, your focus, your wisdom, your effort, your presence. Give without keeping score, without demanding reward. Give because it's who you are, because it's what aligns you with the natural laws of increase. And then watch what happens. Watch how the doors begin to open. Watch how your confidence begins to rise. Watch how your inner world expands and your outer world follows. This is not theory. It is law, and the law is always at work for those who choose to live by it. One of the most misunderstood aspects of abundance is that it must be earned through grind, toil, and exhaustion. We've been taught that the only path to wealth is through struggle, that stress is a badge of honor, and that if we aren't constantly hustling, we're falling behind. But the divine principle that unlocks true abundance reveals something much wiser. Abundance flows not from force, but from flow, from alignment, not aggression, from harmony, not haste. This doesn't mean you sit back and wait. It means your action is guided by clarity, not chaos. The individual who understands this truth begins to operate with what I call calm intensity. They are not passive, but they are not panicked. They are intentional, focused, grounded, and because of that, they produce more in less time. They don't waste energy fighting the current, they move with it. And that's why their success seems effortless. It's not effortless, it's just efficient. It's built on inner order, and inner order always leads to outer wealth. This is why one of the highest forms of discipline is mental clarity. Clarity of purpose, clarity of values, clarity of vision. When your mind is clear, your actions become precise, your decisions become simple, your energy becomes concentrated. But when your mind is clouded with fear, comparison, resentment, or doubt, you begin to fragment. You start saying yes to things that drain you. You chase what others have instead of building what you're called to create. And you fall into the most dangerous trap of all, distraction disguised as progress. The divine principle reminds us that abundance is a result of focused energy, not frantic motion. And the only way to focus that energy is to cultivate stillness. Stillness is not inaction, it is strategic silence. It is the ability to pause, reflect, and realign before you proceed. The most abundant people I've ever met are not the loudest, they are the clearest. And that clarity is what draws resources to them like gravity. Let's talk now about generosity. Not as an act, but as a posture. When you give with strings attached, you are not being generous. You are making a transaction. But when you give with no agenda, from a full place with trust in the return, you are living the law. This law is subtle. It doesn't always reward in the same form you gave. You might give time and receive favor. You might give attention and receive opportunity. You might give patience and receive peace. But the principle is always working behind the scenes. It is weaving your unseen actions into visible results. And the moment you begin giving from overflow instead of obligation, you enter a higher rhythm. That rhythm starts to regulate your life. You become less reactive, more creative, less dependent, more fulfilled. Because your giving no longer comes from fear, it comes from faith, from a deep knowing that you are connected to something bigger than yourself and that what flows out will return multiplied. I want to give you a practical frame for this. Imagine your life as a channel, not a container. A container holds, a channel flows. When you live like a container, you hold tightly to what you have, afraid to lose it. You operate from fear, from scarcity, from limitation. But when you become a channel, you allow value to flow through you. You let ideas, wisdom, kindness, and wealth pass through your hands to serve others. And in return, more flows to you. Why? Because nature abhors stagnation. Stagnation leads to decay. But flow? Flow leads to expansion. If a river is blocked, it becomes a swamp. But when it moves freely, it brings life to everything around it. Your life is no different. The more you flow, the more life you create for yourself and for everyone around you. It's worth asking, where are you blocked? Where have you closed yourself off from flow? Is it in your time, your trust, your finances, your self-expression? Abundance cannot move through what you're unwilling to open. The divine principle requires access. If your gifts are buried, your voice silenced, your ideas withheld, you've shut the gate, and life respects gates. It will not force its way in. It waits to be invited. And the invitation begins when you choose to show up, fully, consistently, courageously, not perfectly, but fully. This doesn't mean giving everything to everyone. It means giving intentionally, giving where it matters, giving where it grows, because when you give where your heart is called, you awaken your purpose, and purpose is the ultimate abundance trigger. When you live in purpose, you don't chase fulfillment. It finds you, because fulfillment is the byproduct of giving what only you can give. Let me speak now about receptivity. Most people block their own blessings, not because they don't work hard, but because they don't feel worthy to receive. They reject compliments. They downplay their gifts. They deflect opportunities. They carry guilt around money, success, and visibility. And so they sabotage abundance at the door. But the divine principle includes receiving. Receiving is not greed. Receiving is humility. It's saying, I am open to be blessed so that I can bless. If you only give and never receive, you create imbalance. You burn out. You shrink. And the law cannot sustain imbalance. It will correct you through fatigue, through frustration, through scarcity. But when you allow yourself to receive with gratitude, with honor, with integrity, you complete the cycle. You keep the flow alive. You allow abundance to do what it's designed to do. Move, multiply, and bless. This is why your self-image matters. You cannot receive what you do not believe you're worthy of. If you see yourself as small, broke, behind, you will unconsciously reject anything that contradicts that image. But when you upgrade your self-image to match the life you want, you begin to attract it naturally, not through force, but through frequency. You no longer feel like a fraud when good things come. You feel aligned because you've done the inner work. You've prepared, you've clarified, you've served, and now receiving is not a surprise. It is the logical next step. So I ask you, what image of yourself are you reinforcing every day? What story are you repeating? Because your life will never rise above the identity you carry in your mind. But the good news is, you can change that image today. And when you do, everything else begins to match. Let me close this part by giving you a single unforgettable truth. You are the gatekeeper of abundance in your life. Not your job, not your past, not your environment. You. And the gate opens not through striving, but through surrender. Not to laziness, but to alignment, to trust, to flow. When you commit to being a channel of value and allow yourself to both give and receive freely, you begin to live in the rhythm of increase. You stop surviving and start expanding. And when you live in that rhythm, you don't just change your life, you change the lives of everyone you touch. There is a sacred truth buried deep within every act of genuine giving. It multiplies the moment it leaves your hand. This is the mystery that confounds the logical mind and yet empowers the spiritual one. You see, when you give with a pure heart, not to impress, not to manipulate, not to tally return, but simply to serve, you've aligned with a law more ancient than money and more powerful than influence. It is the law of increase through self-extension. The seed does not become a tree until it breaks open and gives itself to the soil. The candle does not illuminate a room until it gives its flame. And the human soul does not experience abundance until it gives of itself, its gifts, its strength, its substance. The divine principle of abundance demands that we participate in life as creators, not consumers, contributors, not collectors. And the one who gives without fear of loss will find that increase is inevitable, because loss is an illusion when what you gave became the reason for your rising. The world you live in mirrors your assumptions about it. If you believe people are selfish, you'll find evidence of betrayal. If you believe life is hard, your days will reflect struggle. But if you believe that your contribution creates your reward, your work takes on new energy. You stop asking, what can I get from this? And start asking, what can I bring to this? And when you ask that question long enough, when you walk into every room, every opportunity, every challenge with that mindset, you become the source. Not the seeker, not the beggar, not the one waiting for validation. You become the one people look to, trust, follow, reward, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. That shift from extraction to extension, this is the inflection point that separates scarcity from abundance. And it is not made once, it is made daily, moment by moment, in the quiet, private decisions that no one sees until the results become undeniable. Let us now address the link between gratitude and abundance. Gratitude is not a passive feeling, it is an active frequency. It tunes the mind to see what is present, not just what is lacking. And what you see, you multiply. Most people walk through life seeing problems. They amplify them, they talk about them, they expect them. And problems grow. But the person who sees progress, even in small things, the one who says, this is working, this is growing, this is good, they water their blessings. They enlarge their capacity to receive. Because the mind will always find more of what it focuses on. And when you focus on gratitude, you align with increase, not out of delusion, but out of decision. You are deciding to live from fullness, not emptiness. And fullness attracts fullness. You cannot be both grateful and bitter at the same time. You must choose, and the choice determines your atmosphere, your relationships, your momentum. Gratitude also fuels stewardship. When you are grateful, you take better care of what you have. You honor your time, your tools, your body, your relationships. And stewardship is the bridge between current blessings and future breakthroughs. The divine principle of abundance does not reward possession, it rewards stewardship. There are people with more talent than you who will go nowhere because they neglect what they've been given. And there are people with less talent who will rise to the top because they multiplied what little they started with. This is the law of increase. To him who has, more will be given, and to him who has not, even what he has will be taken away. This isn't cruel, it's precise. It reveals a truth that abundance begins with awareness and is sustained by care. What you neglect, you lose. What you nurture, you elevate. And when you treat your life, your work, your opportunities as sacred, abundance responds accordingly. The individual aligned with this principle also masters the art of non-resistance. What you resist persists. The more you fight reality, the more you feed the very thing you fear. This does not mean surrendering to mediocrity. It means accepting the facts of your current season and choosing to move through them with wisdom instead of war. You do not need to fight the tide to reach the shore. You need to understand the current and swim with it. That understanding of timing, of seasons, of cycles, is what makes your action elegant, effective, magnetic. Those who are desperate for control repel the very abundance they're chasing. But those who move with trust, who say, this is the season I'm in and I will give my best in it, those are the ones who rise with peace. And peace, when combined with focus, becomes a superpower in a world addicted to noise. Now let's consider the role of expectation. Expectation is not arrogance, it is alignment. The one who expects increase is not entitled but engaged. They are watching, they are preparing, they are tuned into opportunity, because they believe that good is on the way, not because they deserve it, but because they've participated in its creation. If you plant with diligence, you have every right to expect a harvest. If you give with purity, you have every reason to expect a return. This is not wishful thinking, it is agreement with the law, and your level of expectation will always reveal the size of your internal permission. If you secretly believe you are unworthy, you will unconsciously sabotage the very things you ask for. But when you lift your expectations, you lift your standards, and when your standards rise, your results follow. This is why you must speak abundance over your life. Your words are not just descriptions, they are directions. They tell your mind what to look for. They instruct your body how to feel. They inform the world how to respond. When you speak lack, you live lack. When you speak increase, you begin to see it. This is not magic. It's neurological and spiritual law. Your brain filters reality through your language. Your spirit aligns with the story you repeat. So stop saying, "I can't afford that." Say, "I'm learning how to create that." Stop saying, "I never have time." Say, "I'm choosing how I spend my time." Shift your language from victimhood to ownership, and the energy around you will shift with it. Because language is seed, and what you sow you will reap. This is the divine economy. Thoughts to words, words to actions, actions to results. To live in alignment with this principle is to walk in daily agreement with truth. You are not here to survive. You are here to create, to give, to receive, to multiply. You are not here to shrink. You are here to rise, not through manipulation, but through alignment. Not through noise, but through clarity. And the clearer you become, the more you focus on giving, stewarding, trusting, expecting, the more naturally abundance flows. You don't have to force what you're aligned with. You simply have to become it. There comes a moment in every person's journey when they must decide whether they will continue playing the game of survival or step fully into the reality of creation. Survival is about reaction. It's about doing just enough to get by, about protecting what you have, about fearing loss more than you desire gain. But creation is different. Creation is proactive. It's generous. It's visionary. It moves from a belief that life expands as we expand, that resources multiply when purpose multiplies, and that energy, time, love, and wealth are not fixed pies to divide, but flowing rivers that grow wider the more you give. This shift from survival to creation is not an external one. It is internal. It begins with how you see yourself. Are you here to extract, or are you here to expand? Are you here to chase, or are you here to cultivate? When you decide that your life is not a reaction to the world, but a response to your own highest calling, abundance begins to gather around you. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Let's examine how this principle manifests in your daily routine. Your habits are the architecture of your future. Every small decision, repeated consistently, becomes either a vessel for increase or a trap for mediocrity. The one aligned with divine abundance understands this deeply. They wake with intention. They guard their mind in the morning. They filter their inputs. They do not allow chaos to dictate their calendar. Their mornings are structured not around urgency, but around alignment. Gratitude, stillness, movement, reflection, planning. These are not luxuries, they are levers. And these levers move the world quietly, powerfully from the inside out, because the person who owns their morning owns their day, and the person who owns their day owns their life. Abundance is not attracted to disorder. It is attracted to clarity, to harmony, to stewardship. And your routine is the clearest signal you send to the universe about what you're ready for and what you're not. This brings us to the principle of order. Order is not rigidity, it's resonance. It is the ability to create flow within form. Without order, energy leaks, ideas scatter, time is wasted. But with order, energy compounds, ideas land, results stack. This is why those who live in alignment with abundance simplify their life, not to do less, but to focus more. They strip away what doesn't serve. They declutter their minds, their spaces, their relationships, because they understand that complexity kills clarity, and clarity is wealth. When your environment is orderly, your mind relaxes, your intuition sharpens, you become more responsive, less reactive, and in that state you make better decisions, not just faster ones. The divine principle is not random. It is built on law, and law operates within structure. So if you want more flow, create more order. That's the paradox. You do not become free by escaping structure. You become free by mastering it. The abundant individual also understands the sacred relationship between identity and behavior. You cannot behave consistently in a way that contradicts who you believe you are. That means abundance cannot remain in the life of someone who secretly believes they are unworthy of it. Your bank account, your body, your relationships, your peace, they will all adjust to match your dominant self-concept. This is why the work is never just external, it's internal first. Who do you believe you are? What do you believe you deserve? What level of order, excellence, and value have you accepted as your baseline? The divine principle of abundance rewards identity alignment. When your thoughts, language, posture, and habits all say the same thing, you become congruent. And congruence is magnetic. People trust it. Life rewards it. But incongruence? Incongruence repels, so if your results don't match your desire, don't just adjust your strategy, adjust your self-image. Let me give you something practical here. Write down who you would be if you already had the life you want. How would you speak? How would you walk? How would you respond to challenges? How would you carry yourself in a meeting, in your home, in your quiet moments? Now start doing that. Not next week, today. This is the fastest path to internal congruence. You don't need permission. You need embodiment. You need to become now who you intend to be later. This is how identity is rewritten through action, not just affirmation. And as your actions align with your new identity, your nervous system catches up. Your reality begins to reorganize. This is not theory. This is neuroplasticity. The more often you act as the person you're becoming, the more easily it becomes who you are. And who you are is what determines what you receive. Let us now speak of faith, not as a religious doctrine, but as a practical force. Faith is the internal agreement that something unseen is already moving in your favor. It is the ability to act as if what you desire is already true. Faith is not wishing, it is walking. It is making decisions from a place of confidence, not just hope. The person aligned with abundance walks in faith, not recklessly, but firmly. They don't wait for perfect evidence, they trust the law. They know that their contribution will not return void, that the seeds they plant today will become fruit tomorrow if they are faithful in the watering. Faith does not mean ignoring reality. It means interpreting it through the lens of purpose, not fear. And when you live this way, you move differently. You speak with more weight. You breathe with more ease, because you're not constantly questioning your worth, your path, your timing. You've decided, and decision is the beginning of all dominion. The divine principle also reveals a profound truth, that money is not the master, it is the servant. It was never meant to rule over you, it was meant to respond to you. Money is energy. It moves toward value, structure, and purpose. When you give it clear instructions through goals, budgets, investments, it obeys. When you leave it directionless, it drifts. When you worship it, it hides. But when you respect it, use it wisely, and detach your identity from it, it grows. The person aligned with abundance is not obsessed with money. They are obsessed with creating value. And as they create value, money follows. Not because they chase it, but because they lead it. This is why some of the wealthiest individuals are also the calmest about money. They understand that it is a tool, not a trophy. It reflects their impact, not their identity. And because of that, they steward it well. Finally, understand this. The life you want is not waiting for more effort, it is waiting for more alignment. It's not asking you to push harder, it's asking you to live deeper, to move with principle, to give from overflow, to receive without guilt, to organize your mind, your space, and your identity around truth. This is the path, not the easy path, but the empowered one. And as you walk it, step by step, you will notice something remarkable. The struggle begins to lessen, the doors begin to open, the pace becomes sustainable, not because you've escaped the work, but because you've finally become the one who was always meant to do it. There comes a time when you must decide whether abundance is just a nice idea you entertain or a reality you fully embody. Because the principle won't work until you do. You cannot stand at the edge of your potential and dip a toe in the water. You must step in, fully, with both feet and both hands, with all of your faith and all of your fire. Abundance does not respond to indecision. It doesn't pour itself into the lives of the hesitant, the half-committed, or the easily distracted. It responds to devotion, to consistency, to clarity. The individual who experiences true sustained abundance is not the one who tries 100 things once. It's the one who does one thing 100 times with excellence, with presence, with heart. That level of focus is rare in a world addicted to novelty, but it is that very rarity that attracts extraordinary results. When you become deeply rooted in your purpose, everything around you begins to organize itself in your favor, not because you're lucky, but because your life now broadcasts a signal of certainty, and certainty is magnetic. Let's take this further. Abundance does not mean you will never face challenges. It means you will face them differently. The abundant individual sees challenges as refinement, not rejection. When something doesn't work, they don't collapse. They recalibrate. They ask better questions. They don't ask, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is this teaching me? What skill must I develop? What part of my process needs strengthening? Because they understand that obstacles are not proof of failure, they are confirmations of progress. They are the stretching required for greater capacity. Every time you rise through resistance, your capacity expands. You become capable of holding more, managing more, receiving more, and abundance flows to the one who can hold it without breaking. The reason so many never experience true wealth is because they are building without first expanding their internal foundation. They want more, but they haven't yet become more. And so when success comes, it slips through their fingers. But the one who grows as they go, who deepens before they scale, they are the ones who not only attract abundance, but sustain it. The divine principle also demands one uncomfortable truth. You cannot build an abundant life while being bound by resentment. Bitterness is a toxin to the soul. It clogs the channel through which blessings flow. You cannot receive freely while holding anger in your heart. Forgiveness is not a gift you give others. It's a gift you give yourself to release yourself from the prison of past pain. The abundant individual does not deny their wounds, but they refuse to be defined by them. They bless, and they move forward, not because it's easy, but because they value their future more than their frustration. And in releasing the weight of resentment, they make space for peace, for vision, for energy, for divine appointments that only reveal themselves to the clean-hearted. This is not just emotional advice, it is strategic. You cannot carry the frequency of abundance while echoing the frequency of pain. Choose peace, not for the past, for the future. There's another layer here. The truly abundant individual also detaches from outcomes. This doesn't mean they don't care. It means they care enough to let go, to do the work without needing to control the result. Because they understand that control is an illusion, and the tighter they grip, the less room they leave for flow. Detachment is not apathy. It's trust. It's a knowing that when you've done your part, when you've sown good seed into good soil, your only job is to keep tending, keep believing, and let time finish the rest. The anxious doer burns out trying to force fruit before its season. The aligned builder rests in the rhythm. They understand that the harvest has a timing, and if you try to rush it, you ruin it. So they stay focused on the inputs, the intention, the energy, the excellence, and they trust that the outcome will reveal itself exactly when it's ready. That kind of trust takes maturity, but that maturity creates momentum. Now let's talk about legacy. Abundance that ends with you is not abundance, it's accumulation. The divine principle makes one thing clear. We are not meant to be reservoirs. We are meant to be rivers. What flows to us must flow through us. And when we live with that in mind, our impact transcends our lifetime. We stop thinking only in terms of profit and begin thinking in terms of principle. What values am I passing on? What systems am I building that will last when I'm gone? What kind of character do I model for those watching me? The truly abundant individual builds for more than comfort. They build for contribution. They raise their family with wisdom. They train their team with integrity. They give anonymously. They build slowly. They think long-term. Not because they want praise, but because they understand the truth. What you build in alignment with divine law never dies. It echoes. It compounds. It becomes part of the collective good. That is wealth. There is also a quiet discipline that those who walk in abundance carry. It is the discipline of joy. They do not postpone joy until the goal is met. They cultivate it now, not because everything is perfect, but because they've learned to find meaning in the middle. They don't just celebrate the summit, they celebrate the step, the silence, the sunrise, the lesson. And this joy becomes fuel. It keeps the process sustainable, because joy is not weakness, it's strength. It's the ability to remain grateful in uncertainty, steady in progress, and present in motion. If your journey is only fueled by pressure, you will burn out. But if it is also fueled by joy, by a sense of meaning, of gratitude, of divine partnership, then you will not only go far, but you will enjoy the road there. That joy is what makes you radiant. It's what gives you presence. And that presence is often the greatest gift you give to others. Take a moment now and realize how far you've already come, how much you've survived, how many battles you've faced and lessons you've learned. You are not starting from scratch. You are starting from experience, and that experience has value. It has wisdom. It has weight. You don't need to become someone else to unlock abundance. You need to become more of who you already are, refined, aligned, focused. You already have the seeds. Now it's time to tend the soil. And as you do, something sacred begins to happen. Life bends to meet you, not immediately, but inevitably, because you are no longer in resistance, you are in resonance. You are no longer pushing, you are partnering with truth, with law, with the very nature of increase. So if you've been waiting for a sign that you're ready, this is it. If you've been wondering whether you're worthy, Let this be the reminder that you've always been. You are not behind. You are not lacking. You are not broken. You are being invited. Invited to rise, to align, to become. And when you say yes to that invitation, not with words but with action, then everything you've been reaching for starts to move toward you. Because the law is faithful, the principle is proven, and your time is now. There is a sacred moment in the life of every person who lives by the divine principle, a moment when they look around and realize, this is no longer effort, this is embodiment. What used to feel like discipline now feels like rhythm. What once required reminders now flows through routine. The fear that once whispered, will this ever work, is replaced by a calm assurance, it already is, and that's when you know you've crossed the threshold. Not because your external world is perfect, but because your internal world is unshakable. You are no longer trying to attract abundance. You've become abundant. You think like it, speak like it, move like it, and because of that the world around you adjusts, not by accident, by law. This is the quiet reward for those who've done the invisible work, who've aligned their identity with value, their habits with vision, and their decisions with principle. At this level, abundance is no longer a pursuit, it's a reflection. But let's be clear, this isn't where the work ends, it's where the responsibility deepens. Because now that you have the rhythm, the question becomes, how will you use it? Who will benefit from your overflow? Because real wealth is not what you hold, it's what you're able to release. The divine principle doesn't just reward the accumulator, it elevates the circulator. Those who circulate wisdom, opportunity, resources, energy, those who refuse to dam the river but instead become the channel through which it flows. This doesn't mean depleting yourself, it means distributing from your surplus. You don't give what you can't afford, you give what you've built, you give from strength. And the more you give, the more space you create for greater levels of abundance to enter. That's the paradox. The most generous people always seem to have the most to give, because they've understood that hoarding creates scarcity, but flow invites increase. This is where you begin to live with what I call spiritual efficiency. Everything matters now. Not with pressure, but with purpose. The way you walk into a room, the energy you bring to a meeting, the presence you give to a conversation, it's all part of your contribution. You don't waste words anymore. You don't tolerate drama. You don't chase approval. You live tuned in, focused, clear, and this clarity sharpens your impact. You're not spread thin, you're concentrated because you've stopped trying to be everything and started mastering who you actually are. And in that mastery, you discover something radical. Your life becomes simpler, not because it's smaller, but because it's sharper, more distilled, more directed, and simplicity, when guided by principle, becomes a force. It cuts through noise, it attracts without trying, it multiplies without confusion. You also begin to notice that abundance brings with it new types of tests. Not just the test of perseverance, but the test of stewardship. Can you handle more without becoming less? Can you grow without outgrowing your values? Can you succeed without losing the stillness that got you there? These are the silent thresholds many never see coming, because they confuse growth with greatness. But true greatness isn't measured by what you accumulate, it's measured by how much peace you can hold at the top. Can you still wake up with wonder? Can you still listen more than you speak? Can you still serve without needing credit? These are the hallmarks of someone who didn't just touch abundance but became trustworthy with it. And trustworthiness is what allows abundance to remain. Let's now speak of one final layer, your influence. Whether you realize it or not, you are shaping the lives of others through the way you live, through what you tolerate, through how you speak, through what you celebrate. The divine principle doesn't just reward your inner world, it multiplies your outer ripple. That means your children, your community, your team, your audience, they're all being shaped by the energy you carry. You're either reinforcing a scarcity model or demonstrating an abundance one. And that responsibility, when seen clearly, becomes fuel. It reminds you that this isn't just about your success, it's about your legacy. Not just what you leave behind, but what you awaken in others while you're still here. The greatest wealth you can ever generate is the belief you help ignite in another human being, because belief outlives money, it outlasts applause, and it creates more than any currency ever could. At this level, abundance also becomes more subtle. It's not just about financial growth, it's about spiritual overflow. You begin to measure your wealth by the peace in your mind, the depth of your sleep, the truth in your words, the softness in your presence. You find yourself less interested in proving and more interested in becoming, less drawn to noise, more pulled toward silence. This is not regression, it's refinement. You've stopped performing success and started inhabiting it, and from that place, life feels different. Conversations feel deeper, decisions feel lighter, and the future feels less like a mountain to climb and more like a garden to tend. Because when you're aligned with the divine principle, you no longer chase outcomes, you simply plant, water, wait, and watch the inevitable harvest arrive. And so as this message comes to a close, I invite you to remember something timeless. Abundance is not reserved, it is revealed to those who choose alignment over approval, service over self-preservation, stewardship over status. This path is not for the many, but it is open to anyone. Anyone willing to live not just for gain but for growth, not just for success but for significance. Anyone willing to give more than they take, to think bigger than their fear, to love deeper than their wounds, to build something so rooted in principle that even the winds of change cannot shake it. That is what it means to live by the divine principle. And once you do, you'll never return to survival again, because you've remembered who you are and what flows through you.